You are now listening to the #MBDA Conversations podcast. In this podcast, you will be informed and empowered about MBDA's social, spatial, and economic transformation programs in Nelson Mandela Bay. Stay tuned.
Hello and welcome to #MBDA Conversations podcast. Thank you for tuning in. I am your season's host, Olwam Mwazi. Joining us in studio is MBDA's Senior Project Manager, Dorelle Sapere. Thank you for joining us, Dorelle.
Thank you for inviting me.
How do you feel today? Are you good?
Yes, I'm good. I'm positive. It's a new year and great things.
Yes. And we've been through a lot in the past couple of years. It's good to have you, someone who's managing a very big project, to be well. If you can just take us a little bit through what you do at MBDA.
So I've been at the MBDA for many years, 14 to be exact. So I was part of the initial planning and thinking and urban renewal of Central in particular. And since then, the MBDA mandate has expanded. So over the years, the focus initially was on building capital projects and doing public space upgrades. And over the last 3-4 years, we've moved to a far more inclusive approach. But primarily as an architect and urban designer, that is my current focus. And packaging the large projects such as Bayworld that we're going to be talking about.
And yes, tell us more about Bayworld development. Please share the vision of this 55 hectares land.
Yes, so initially the brief on Bayworld was the institution, which is, it falls under the Provincial Department of Sports, Recreation, Arts and Culture. It is a museum, but it's a very unique museum. Probably unique in the world, I'd like to think, because it has a number of functions that really are world class. So it's a museum that also focuses on marine, on heritage. It has over the years been a very, very loved tourist attraction because it attracted hundreds of thousands of people a year to watch performing dolphins that used to be part of Bayworld. And then several years ago, around about 2008, I think it was, or 9, the dolphins were moved to Hong Kong. Mm-hmm. And so over the years, this part of the institution has fallen into disrepair. But there's a part of it that is still functioning brilliantly, lots of different aspects. So we were tasked to rethink it, as per the mandate, to rethink the institution, in particular the defunct Oceanarium part and not defunct Snake Park. It's one of the oldest in the country.
Yes, I was worried what happened to the snakes.
The snakes are there. The snakes are there, and they still can be visited. And it's still there's a wonderful team that explains about especially to school children. So that's one of the uniquenesses of Bayworld, is that it has a school, an official school that is part of the institution where the teachers are paid for by the Department of Education. And this unique school gives 100,000 children every year the opportunity to have a once-of-a-lifetime experience. And we want to enable that experience to reach not only the children in our city, all of them, or all the children in the province, but even worldwide now with digital and virtual reality and so on. So in order to find a way that Bayworld could be world-class and a niche, we needed to understand what did we do? What do we need to do to make that happen? And there is 55 hectares of land in the precinct that is underutilized completely. And so we conceptualized the upgrade of Bayworld as part of a much bigger program of actually 13 catalytic projects that will boost the economy not only of our city but hopefully of the province as well, especially when it's seen in context of the new waterfront that is about to start as well. So it becomes a mega game changer for the city.
It does. And I also know that there are bits about heritage I remember reading some of the posters there about our heritage. Anything about that? I know that it's part of this mega project as well.
Most definitely. In fact, one of the main aims is to be a premier heritage institution. So we are unlocking economic opportunities, educational opportunities, but the utilization of heritage, celebrating heritages, particularly the intangible. So the project is framed in the context of heritage. And when we talk about the heritage in this instance, we're talking about the built heritage. We're talking about the green heritage because it is the unique biodiversity of the city that is the selling point for this development. But almost more important is the intangible heritage. We are such a culturally diverse city, and we have so many heritages in all the cultures that we are represented or made up of, that we want to celebrate those, the stories, the history, the natural history, but also the cultural history across the board, an inclusive cultural history.
You are listening to #MBDA Conversations. Be part of the conversation by sending your voice notes to our WhatsApp line 072 423 0271.
Let's just get into the 13 catalytic projects of various sizes. Maybe speak much more in detail on that.
Right. So the Bayworld upgrade itself has a few of those 13. So Bayworld, there is a museum which has a world-class collection. There are scientists and researchers across the world that use the collection as a research. It's all hidden behind the scenes, so it's not something that the public can enjoy necessarily. It's not shared with children, so you don't really see this collection in full. It's hidden in a storeroom, a lot of it, and then at times it is brought out and curated in an exhibition. So project number 1 is to really upgrade the museum and turn it into a relevant 21st century space that is digitally clued up, that is participatory for children, that gives the young generation of today the kind of experience that they want, which is very different from someone my age. When I went there, I was very happy to look at static, read about things. But now we need to be wired up. We need to be fast. We need to have quick experiences. We need to be able to engage with it. So it needs to shift into the realm of fourth industrial revolution readiness, but also to be able to display things that the world can access digitally. The second project is the upgrade of the sanctuary, because Bayworld has, again, another uniqueness. It has all the relevant licenses, history and experience to be a sanctuary. In other words, to look after animals in captivity. So while the world has changed around zoos and animals in captivity, whether it is a dolphin or whether it is at a zoo, other mammals, there are animals that have been there for years, 30, 40 years, that have been kept there. So Bayworld is their home. And the educational component, the teachers, for them, having live animals to teach children about whether it's a dolphin again or a seal or a penguin.
Or to scare them about.
Is priceless. Or to scare them about, because that's part of never forgetting, isn't it? So the sanctuary really involves upgrading the facility for the live animals and a new aquarium, a state-of-the-art aquarium that will showcase the unique biodiversity in our oceans in particular. Then there is currently what it used to be called the old Tropical House. It transformed in the 70s into a conference centre, and we'd like to find something really amazing to do there. We are thinking of a digital dome, which is, if you're familiar with the dome at Iziko in Cape Town, it's similar, but it's the Rolls-Royce of educational opportunities. It's a 3D movie on steroids, because it's a completely immersive experience. Then we have the Water World, as we call it, which really is through the engagement that we did on understanding what the potential were. People were very keen for a fun water park. as part of the development. And we've responded to that in that there's a bowling green area behind the current Bayworld, and that we see becoming a slippy, slidey, fun adventure water park, but also with education. The whole of Bayworld has a theme of education as well, because those 100,000 children that come every year, this is their experience, this is their moment. So that is one aspect. Then we also wanted the whole development to become sustainable and commercially viable. So there are a number of projects that we believe the private sector will be interested in. So there's a potential eco-hotel in order to be relevant to all people in the city and to provide opportunity for inclusivity. That's the word I'm looking for. We are going to do a affordable housing development in the precinct as well, so that people can live, work and play in the precinct in an affordable way. Currently, Humood Summerstrand is quite unaffordable. It's certainly more of an exclusive precinct, and we're wanting to change that narrative in the city. So it is about linking parts of the city and providing opportunities right there to live, work and play. Then on the top end, where again it would depend on what the market appetite is, the MBDA has a mandate to build an international conference centre on that land. So we've been looking at the feasibility of that, or possibly are there other areas that's best suited for an ICC. So that the top end, it is possible that it could be an ICC, but it could also be something that the private sector feels there is more demand for. So there have been thoughts about Silicon Valley type industry. There have been thoughts about a number of shopping centres. Not quite sure. One of the projects, though, is a smart industrial academy, which is very exciting because it focuses on the industrial nature of our city and building understanding and awareness of that, providing an opportunity for young people to look at a career in industry. And it is a facility that's almost a mini conference centre. So there's a lot of conferencing, a lot of display of technology, robotics, etc., etc. That is a project that is quite far progressed in terms of its planning and its design. And then in the long term, there's always the debate about dolphins or no dolphins. And while the position is quite clear that we do not want to capture dolphins from the sea, it is possible that in the long term, there may be a need for dolphins to be rehabilitated. And the intention then is, again, in the very, very far future, probably a 10-year horizon, if not more, is that the MacArthur Bath complex across the road could be rehabilitated into dolphin pools for rehabilitating dolphins. So not keeping in captivity for any long length of time, but as a rehabilitation facility. So those are part of the plans as well. I might have missed one or two. I wasn't counting.
No, that is good to know, and I know that you have a lot of licenses to be getting, and because the work is quite vast and big.
Be part of the conversation. For more information, visit www.mbda.co.za.
Before we get to the WhatsApp line, I just wanted you to briefly talk about the challenges, because I know with this amount of money, this amount of projects, there are challenges. And do you want to talk about them?
So the Bayworld specific challenges, the whole plan to reinvent Bayworld started actually as early as 2003, 2004. And there were plans drawn up. There were proposals made about a new vision. I think the availability of funding is always one, because it's a big ticket transformation. In 2004, I think the feasibility study indicated a 500 million. Or 250 million, I think. I forget those figures. I don't have in my head right now, forgive me. But and obviously over time, not only has the facility changed what it needs to do, but escalation and so on. So the availability of budget is definitely one aspect to it. But also the changes in governance in the city has not always prioritised Bayworld as a project. Often the focus has been to do other things. The city itself is cash-strapped, so it is very unlikely that the city will ever be able to fund such a 2.5 billion development, which is why we've entered into partnerships. And we see that the implementation through partnerships is the way to go. So of the 13 projects, there are 7 that are potentially private sector driven, where the city can enter into a public-private partnership and use a model that is referred to as a BOOT, a build, own, operate and transfer back to the city, so that the developer can make his or her profit, but ultimately the asset becomes the city's asset in the long term. And that is part of the intention of dealing with those financial challenges.
On the skills part, because this is big, I'm sure that you want some of the skills in developing this precinct to remain behind. Do you have planning on that?
So the planning for the whole precinct is about job creation. It's one of the national imperatives. And again, the reason why we looked at developing the full 55 hectares rather than just the Bayworld part of things, because we have a particular focus on job creation, but also on incubation and building the opportunity for young people to follow new careers. So the educational aspect, mentoring, developing incubators as part of what we're doing, such as the Smart Industrial Academy, where you can incubate if you have a new technological idea, you would be able to find the help and support for incubating. The same within the Bayworld proposal itself around marine biodiversity, heritage. So those notions. We are also anticipating that because the project is such a large project, that we can roll out a very considered SMME program around the building part of things, where we really work with the SMMEs to grow and develop and enable them to progress and move from what we call a CIDB1, which is an entry-level grading, up through the ranks. So that also looks at the job creation. As far as the EPWP program, we also believe that because part of the area is green and about adventure and fun areas, that was one that I forgot, was about the adventure world. I can talk to that in a minute. But that is something which is ideally suited to an EPWP job creation program, creating green ambassadors that would not only look after the whole stretch of the valley, but also learn skills and grow in their careers. So each aspect is related to job creation, new careers, inspiring young minds to do new and different things.
As normal, right now, we will be listening to your views through WhatsApp notes.
Hello, MBDA people. I just want to know, when is the revamp starting? And how can we, as the citizens, be part of it? Thank you.
So the upgrade is starting already. We are busy packaging the first project, which is the upgrade of the sanctuary. There are a number of the buildings related to the old oceanarium and dolphin pools that are in a bad state of repair, unsafe. So we need to demolish those and prepare that parcel of land for the future aquarium. So that project of upgrading what we call the sanctuary has started in the preparation of tender documents. NMBM citizens can be part of it, are part of it, because the MBDA always has a very inclusive and extensive public participation process around all of its projects. So we would often ask for opinions. We have in the past about what should we do, the conceptual framework, and every project we invite people to be part of the shaping what it could be. We also are looking at young interns, how we can use interns in all the sub-projects that we do. And I think just join, watch our space and be part of it.
Thank you. You've told us about the connection with Happy
Valley.
Can you just tell us more about the telecom part aspect?
Yes. So Happy Valley, the education, the adventure world, is also a project that has started in terms of planning, so watch the space for potential opportunities to engage. The Telkom Park area is the upper reaches of the 55 hectare where the old Boet Erasmus Stadium used to be and which we demolished in preparation of the Bayworld area. That part is primarily private sector interest. So we will make the land available to the private sector. It still needs to go through the council approval, but that is imminent. So we would then advertise expressions of interest to do various things on that land that might be of interest to the public sector, private sector.
Is it the portion that they will develop and then over time it will belong the city's asset?
Yes. Yes. So the housing forms part of that. If there is an appetite for a shopping centre, if the ICC happens, the Smart Industrial Academy, all of that happens on the top end on the Telkom Park land.
And how did you deal with the questions that were coming up about the development of that patch of land for housing?
We haven't started the housing development yet. So currently we are in the process of calling formal public opinion around the sanctuary, and that would touch those sort of areas as well. So I think the private sector was very interested, obviously, in the parcel of land that would be made available for housing, but we want to be sure that it is a affordable housing model and not high-end.
Okay, this project utilizes the quadruple Helix model. Do you want to tell us more about that?
Yes, the quadruple Helix model is a term that is being used when we talk about doing things in partnerships. And the quadruple helix refers to the fact that it is crucial for the success of a project like this that the private sector, that government, that the tertiary institutions, the universities and other tertiary institutions, and civil society are involved in the conversation and decision-making about the what and the how would need to happen there. Also, the implementation part for a success will take all four of those sectors, the necessity for them to be involved. So the intention is, we are building various committees with various focus areas to help guide us through the process of what needs to happen. So around SMMEs, for example, if we're going to have an SMME program, we will set up a committee or a group that would help us define, and the group would always have all four sectors represented.
And I saw on your mission and vision that it always needs to be intergenerational, intercultural, and those would be your consideration for the community. I want us to talk about the community aspect. You did touch on it, of course, but let's give it time, because we know through history that when you develop infrastructure and people are not brought in, and I hear the quadruple helix, I was actually thinking about the double helix of a DNA. I think my biology teacher would be happy. But the community, of course, needs to be brought in. Tell us more, how is that process, the intergeneration, intercultural aspect, so that people might know even how to plug in where they can.
So within the MBDA, we have a skilled social facilitator who does just that. His role is to undertake the stakeholder management around the project. So while we've had a lot of discussions with groups, with interested party, with the private sector, we've had a vast amount of public engagement, and we've done a lot of social media engagement as well. A lot of it, because that is the basis on which we work. We really believe that any project, even a project of this magnitude, needs to be rooted in a process where people are determining what could need to be done and how the project can be unlocked. So we use that model in all areas that we work, and now applying it to Bayworld as well. So through that process, with each project that we start unpacking into reality, and I will use the Adventure World one. At Adventure World, we have called for consultants to help us plan that. But before that process starts, our social facilitator will drive a process of engaging across all the wards of the metro, finding a group to work with, to explore what are the possibilities and how can it really become a fun destination and a place where all families have access to, where there can be fun activities that are relative to all the various groups in the city's idea of recreation and leisure. And he will drive that process over the next 6 months to work out conceptually what do we want to do. The professionals that are brought in to plan it formally then are led by the outcomes of that public participation and stakeholder management process.
Okay, thank you. And also, I've seen, I don't know if it would have been your department, maybe not, but let me pose it as well. Out of what came out of the research that was done, I remember we filled in some online forms, and we could see that it was asking us more about the tangible steps that MBDA could do. Did you get anything from there?
Yes, that was a huge part of the development of the whole broad conceptual framework. That's where we drew our inspiration on what we wanted to do, was the social media campaign. I mean, it reached up to, I think, 2 million Facebook users. Each sector, whether it was Instagram or Facebook, reached obviously a different target audience. But we were also able to understand the socio-economic dynamics of people that were interested or not interested in the project, and who would be the target market, who would be the target audience. So it was a very, very valuable process, and I think it has inspired us to do more in other areas that we work. So we've done similar processes in New Brighton that we're also doing some quite catalytic work, and it is a process that social media reach to citizens was very valuable.
Thank you very much for joining us, Dorelle Sapere. Good to meet you, and hopefully you're going to execute this task to the best of your ability, because we really need something big, something that we can focus on for a couple of years. That is not a lot of fighting, but, aspirational. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
For more intriguing MBDA conversations, follow the MBDA on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Please subscribe and share this podcast. Also visit the MBDA website and send us your questions or views via the MBDA WhatsApp line on 072 423 0271. Thank you for joining us. Till next time.